Hey everyone, this is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast, episode 4. We also do the Warrior and the Wizard podcast with my good friend Justin Carlisle. And that is a combat veteran and a psychologist coming together and talking about trauma and healing and everything in between. But today I'm doing a Wizard podcast. So what is on my mind today? What's really on the forefront of my mind right now in this moment is how difficult change is. Obviously, I think about this a lot on my day-to-day in my work that I do in private practice, but I also think a lot about it within myself, and perhaps by fully acknowledging how difficult change is within myself, maybe it gives a little bit more empathy, a little bit more of a pass to any of you out there who are struggling with wanting to change something and having a really hard time with it. So it's fascinating how we can intellectually want to change. We can even have this emotional sensation of this doesn't feel good anymore. I don't like the way I feel. How many of you have had an experience where you want to change something literally for years on end and you just can't seem to get a grip on it? It's, for whatever reason, it's just got a physical and emotional grip on you. And every day you think about it, and thinking about it creates a bit of dissonance within you, and you have a sense of shame because you're not doing this change thing. So I had a really good conversation with a couple clients of mine this week about change. I had 2 clients that were experiencing some pretty profound shame for not having done the work that they said they wanted to do. And what I really helped them understand is that shame is an emotion that we feel when we have a perception. As I mentioned in the last couple episodes, and maybe I should reflect for anyone that might listen to this one, but isn't going to go back and listen to those. From the time we're born and as we move through our life, we are creating a perception of the world that we live in. We're creating an internal perception of the world we live in. The simplest way to think about it is our mind and our body is designed to learn automatically from experience. And we also selectively attend to experiences based on all kinds of factors. Really, it's based on sort of this pyramid effect of the beliefs that we attach ourselves to, the ideas about ourselves in the world that we attach ourselves to. We create a mental and a physical construct of the world around us, and we measure the present moment against that construct in real time all the time. When we are in alignment with our perception of the way the world should be, we tend to feel okay. When we perceive that we are out of alignment with the way the world should be, or the way we should be according to this construct that we've adapted and adopted over time, we feel uncomfortable. We feel anxiety. We feel sadness. We feel fear. These feelings are just our brains and our body's way of saying, hey, we don't know what is wrong, but something is wrong here. We're picking up on something wrong. And I think I'll spend some episodes going into the depth of how the brain works and how the body works and how this maybe works on a neurological level. But for right now, let's just say your brain and your body are designed, they are made to learn automatically from experience. And you can come at that from an evolutionary point of view, looking at how we developed over centuries, over tens of thousands of years, from a hunter-gatherer to what we are now. You can look at it from a creation point of view if you just want to say we're made this way and designed this way. Again, I'm not really going to get too caught up in interfering with what camp you go to bat for. Doesn't matter because it all works the same anyway. We have a brain and a body that creates a construct of the reality we live in. All of our constructs are somewhat different from one another, which creates conflict between us. And the sensations, the emotions we experience are usually not an accurate representation of what's going on in our inner and outer world. They're simply telling us something is wrong or something is right. They are calibrated based on our life experience. That's why when you have extreme trauma in your life, you have some extreme parenting, some extreme circumstances, either singular circumstances like a bad car accident or going to war or, a bad natural disaster, or what's worse is tending to have chronic traumatic experiences over long periods of time, what we call complex trauma. And you can Google complex trauma or go on YouTube and look up complex trauma. You'll find some really good information about it. So our mind and our body presents us with information that we call emotions, that we call thoughts, and those things are telling us that something's off in the matrix. And because we are programmed and we automatically learn over time, we assume that we have this correct representation of the world we live in, but I think we should all check ourselves and realize that we actually don't have a correct representation of the world we live in. We can work to correct that. We can work to refine our perspective, but we have to constantly be open to new information. We have to constantly be open to refining our perception of ourselves in the context of the world all the time. Because I would say none of us have had perfect learning or perfect education. In fact, it's incredibly biased based on, family, immediate culture, broader culture, time and space, recent history, many, many factors. We know that we are sort of programmed within a socio-cultural context. So we should never assume we have a perfectly accurate representation of the world around us, because we live in a world of ideas and constructs and attachments. So back to what I brought up, I had a couple clients this week who were really struggling with shame. And shame can bring us down, man. Shame is painful. Shame is difficult. Shame makes you feel very small. Shame brings you right back to being a child when you were in trouble and someone was reprimanding you or punishing you. What I just helped these two gentlemen to understand is that the shame they're feeling is simply their body telling them that they have behaved in a way that is disparate from what their mind and their body have decided is correct. In other words, they have decided that they really want to do a certain thing. They've decided, I really want to change. Whatever that change looks like for them, they have decided that change is a very important thing for them. And when they did not engage in that change, well, now they have rules in their head that say, hey, we were going to do that thing. We decided we were going to do that thing. That thing is really important to us, and yet we didn't do it. So we experience shame. You can take shame right back to our hunter-gatherer background or our tribal history. And shame is really an indication that we are behaving in a way that is not in alignment with the reality that we have aligned ourselves to around us. So presumably we as individuals have a shared reality with the people around us. A shared reality is very, very important for societies to work. And if we behave in a way that is somehow disparate from that shared reality, particularly in a way that is negative, we feel shame. Shame is, hey man, my body, my mind, we feel wrong. We feel like we did something wrong. We feel like a bad little boy or bad little girl, and we need to get our behavior back in alignment. So it really helped them to take a step back and look at the sensation of shame, or right next to that, the sensation of guilt, and to use that as a source of information. What it's really saying is, I did not behave in a way that is in alignment with what I decided was the way I want to be in the world. You could say, I did not behave in a way that is in alignment with the attachments that I have made in my life. The attachments up here in my brain, the attachments here in my body, and how those attachments being our relationship to ideas and constructs and beliefs, how those attachments really affect the way that we experience the world around us. So taking a step back from that, again, learn to listen to your emotions. Our emotions are telling us how we perceive the present moment. Now, it's important to remember those emotions are sources of information. They are sources of wisdom, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are correct. They're just sources of information. So we should learn to take a breath. We should learn to practice putting our attention in our breath in the present moment so that we can take a step back and observe, not judge, but observe and accept what is happening in our body and in our mind, and to use those emotions as sources of wisdom and information. Interestingly, the parts of our brain and how that's wired into our body, we can call it the limbic system and the autonomic nervous system, they are wired to work almost automatically. So in any given moment, you're more or less cross-referencing your present moment to everything that you have ever learned that is relevant to your survival or your values.